Hello, and thank you for joining us for this special interview for the Call 2021. My name is Stuart McCarron from the class of 1999, and I'm a former president of the Gonzaga Union. The purpose of the call is to celebrate the extraordinary achievements of alumni in so many artistic and creative disciplines, as well as to encourage current students who have ambitions in the creative arts and to open the eyes of others to possibilities which they may never have considered. What better example could we hope to have than our guest, Hugh O'Connor? Hugh is an all-round talent. As an actor, he starred opposite Liam Neeson in the movie Lamb at just 9 years of age, played the role of the young Christy Brown in My Left Foot, nominated for 5 Oscars, winning two, was in the movie Chocolat, which was also nominated for 5 Oscars, and was in The Stag with fellow past pupil Andrew Scott, who was a couple of years behind Hugh, I think, to name very few of Hugh's acting roles. Hugh's also a highly accomplished director, writer, and photographer. In his role as director, Hughes directed his first movie, Metal Heart. He's worked on music videos, and he was a co-writer and appeared in the sketch comedy show Your Bad Self. Hugh's photography work has also been highly acclaimed, and he received the Maverick Award at the 2019 Dublin Film Critics Circle for his achievements. Hugh, you're very welcome, and thank you for joining us. One of the unfortunate things about Zoom is that we could see you squirm during this introduction, so sorry about that.
That's okay.
Well, thank you very much for joining us, and it really is great. So thank you for giving us your time. Hugh, you started your acting career when you were quite young, as I said, just 9 years of age in the movie Lamb. How did acting start for you?
Well, my dad is a musician and music teacher, and when he was young, his mum, who was a tough cookie, sent him for music lessons and speech lessons as well to kind of better him. And he enjoyed the music, and so when I was young, myself and my brother were both sent for music and speech classes, and I went to Betty Ann Norton's and ended up going into drama as well. And she was, would send us out for auditions when we were like 7. So so that's how it kind of started, and I always enjoyed kind of performing for my family with stupid stories. I'm still doing it on Zoom with my goddaughters in Galway at the moment. I'm doing a little story every week called Duck TV, where I kind of film it on my phone, on the iPad. We just have little toys, and she sort of comes up with the titles, and I don't know, it's fun to kind of keep telling stories to each other. So yeah, and then I happened to get a various parts and a couple of things, and then Lamb came up, and that was kind of probably the first thing that got sort of noticed. And yeah, so I kept going to school during my my teens. I just sort of did stuff on, like, My Left Foot was the only one that I actually had to take time off for, but the rest I kind of did on breaks. So I still went to school.
And so it came naturally to you when you were from a very young age, I suppose, performing and having fun with it, and then your parents sort of spotted something maybe, or continued in their footsteps and sent you on to that famous institution, Betty Ann, to hone your skills. Yeah. And so tell us a bit about My Left Foot. That was your sort of 13 or 14, I guess, at that stage. When you went over to play your part in that, and it obviously became such a huge hit. Is this sometimes, you hear people say, well, we just didn't know it was going to turn into that. Was that the case here? It was a powerful.
It was. I mean, I think even for the first couple of weeks, the funding was still very ropey, and I think Granada eventually came on board. I think there was still a little bit of hairiness during the shoot. I remember that Noel Pearson got it together and kept it going. But yeah, it was something that we were all really excited about and proud of, because of Christy Brown being known within, and his book, was such a legend. But it was a small film, and we didn't really expect, because it did come out in Ireland and did well, and then that was it, and then of course a couple of months later it started getting the American push, and that really made a difference, because then it came out again, I think, in Ireland, like the next, at the end of the year, and we all came back, went to Dublin Castle, and it was kind of a big like homecoming cheer for everybody. But famously in my life, famously for me, they wouldn't, in Gonzaga, they weren't going to let me off to do it, and because I needed to take 3 weeks off, and I think my mum just said, we're just going to say you have an asthma attack, you've had an asthma incident, because I had asthma and I did have to take some time off sometimes. So I think Mr. Wordy, he was not that impressed. But then a couple of months later, or when I think after the Oscars, I remember Father Saxton coming in and congratulating me in front of the class, and I was like, you didn't even want me to I'm being told now, unofficially, to even do this, but now it's fine.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's very funny. I suppose so. I suppose, given the sort of the start that you had to your career, looking back now, it feels as though it must have been an inevitability that you would go into acting. Did it feel like that at the time, or did you just kind of continue to, one thing built on another, and it
Yeah, it
naturally
was
took
more
its
like that.
course?
It was more like that because I think by my late teens anyway, I think I was interested in making stuff, and I love music and I love making short film stuff and filming on a camera and things like that. But yeah, I think it was my dad basically saying to me, "You're going to college," and went for drama. I think I couldn't get the points for English, but I got into drama in Song and Back Center, and that because that was more kind of practical. I could write and maybe direct, and that was something that I was interested in because I'd been kind of when I was 17. Or sorry, I'm getting my dates wrong now. But I had directed something. Uh, some small things myself, but that wasn't really directing. It was just making silly things with friends.
Mm,
But that was when I went to Trinity. Was when I probably decided I'm going to try and, you know, in some form maybe make stuff and write it
mm,
rather than just
mm.
acting, which I still was doing and really enjoying. But I think I even from then I knew that I maybe would love to kind of make my own stuff too. And when I did go to college, I wrote a silly play that I acted in and directed, and then directed an Orson Welles play in fourth year called Moby Dick Rehearsed. It was the only thing he ever wrote based on Moby Dick. And so I think, and then went to film school in NYU, got a Fulbright, and that was definitely with the point to trying to make films. Then I suppose was
Yeah,
trying to make
yeah.
myself. I
And so,
made a film. Yeah.
sorry, please, no, go on, go on, go on.
No, no, just one film that I had acted in, Ben Ross, who's still a great friend of mine, called The Young Poisoner's Handbook, this quite dark English film. But he was a real inspiration because he had written it and he was really into Scorsese, and I was too. And we were doing shots that were kind of inspired by Scorsese, and we ended up like meeting him and he liked it down the line. And I think he kind of inspired me to kind of make stuff for real because I remember being like, I like the Coen Brothers, and he's like, they're shit. And I was like, they're not. And he's still a bit ordinary, and he's wrong. But he was sort of testing me about doing good stuff. So that was interesting.
Yeah. Wow. So tell us a bit more about the Scorsese meeting. How did that come about?
Oh, it was actually heartbreaking because he was supposed to he was executive producer on Ben's second film that never actually happened in the end. It collapsed because Film Four were, I think they were going through some difficulties as well, and they couldn't sort of secure another actor or two, and for some reason the money fell through. But we met him anyway at a screening of Kundun in London, and he was commiserating with us. And I think Ben still would love to make that project that they were all involved in, and Harvey Keitel was going to be in it. It was going to be so cool. But
Ah,
yeah, he had liked the film, and that meant a lot.
mm,
Um, yeah.
yeah. So take us back a little bit. So keeping on the theme of the call a little bit and thinking a bit about current pupils who might be thinking about a career in acting. And you mentioned your dad was keen that you go to college. So, and I suppose some parents might think that, look, acting and directing and this career is a very difficult nut to crack, and they prefer that their kids go into a more traditional, call it, or stable, maybe follow a more traditional or stable career path. And tell us a bit about your parents and how they sort of how they influenced your decision making when you were, if you can think back to that time when you were thinking about what you might do in college and during your late time in school.
Sure. I mean, it does really depend on your family, and because I guess my dad was in the arts, and my mum to some extent too. It was it was more inevitable that I was going to go into it than become a lawyer like everybody else in Gonzaga, or do a proper job. So I'd say there's a minuscule amount of people, but I know there still is, and they were encouraging to me too in Gonzaga about doing that, and they were good about having Mr. Bevan doing. I think I played in sixth year. I was in 12 Angry Men. We did it in a round in the old hall. I had like the grey hair, and I was like the last guy, the Lee J. Cobb, who's like not guilty, and it was like so silly. But so they did encourage drama, and that was great, And I remember Andrew being there and talking to Andrew Scott a bit because I think he went to Betty Ann for a little while. I'm not sure, but I remember talking to him at some stage in Gonzaga about it all, and seeing him then in the Abbey since, and he's incredible. He's one of the best actors ever and will ever come out of Ireland. He's just incredible. I saw him last the summer before, I guess, last in Present Laughter in the Ovic, and that's the main stage in London. Everybody was there for Andrew, and it's this one, star-making part that he was incredible in, and twisted, and made a new sort of story about, and he owned that stage, and he was so inspiring. Anyway, but yeah, I think it's just with people who are thinking about it, if you're passionate, you'll keep going at it, and everyone will tell you no, you'll get rejected, so many times. It's so everybody will tell you not to do it,
Mm,
and you might not be good at it. In which case, you should stop and get another job. But I think yourself after a while if things are sort of moving, or if you feel if you just can't do anything else, and you just love it and you do it every day because you love it, rather than thinking it's something that you'd like to do, or I'd like to be famous. Obviously, not many people are just doing it for that reason, but
mm,
um, you'll make your own look. And I think a lot of people sort of would ask how, in terms of acting, I think it's great to write as well if you can, because you can
mm,
make it, not necessarily if you are a writer, but if you can work with a writer, if you can generate projects yourself. It's so much easier to make films now than even when I was starting out. Even at NYU we were all shooting on film. Now your phone is more powerful than anything we were using, so
mm,
there's no excuse not to make stuff, and it can get seen. So I suppose it's
mm,
just be smart about what you want to do and what stories you
mm,
want to tell. And if it is
mm,
just acting, it is going to be painful, but then you just got to go for it, and believe in yourself.
mm, mm, mm. And your career obviously started in acting, and but you've mentioned that directing and writing were sort of strong, impulses of yours, I suppose, throughout that time as well. And I has actually kind of assumed that you had gone from acting into directing because you recently directed the movie Metal Heart. But actually, that's something that you've been doing all along, I suppose, is it?
Yeah, it kind of has been. I think the first sort of music video I did was with my friends from I Draw Slow. They're a bluegrass band, and we'd been watching these videos online of sort of live videos, and we're like, we should make a video with you guys where we just do it in one shot and we'll do it live. And we did it in Killiney Hill and asked some friends favors. And I think that was the first sort of. I think that was one of the first sort of music videos I'd done. I'd done a short with the Film Board, I think before that, with
Mm,
John Butler, and had gotten the money. So I mean, and that was a script that I wrote with John, and about Pat Short in space. It was ridiculous, called Spaceman 3. But it had a good budget, and I learned so much and made so many mistakes, but I learned so much from doing that. And we're really lucky with Screen Ireland. There's not a lot of countries that have a film fund that will basically give you money to write stuff and generate material if it's good and if they believe in it. But
mm,
there's not a lot of countries that do that. And when you tell people abroad, they're like, you can actually apply and get money just to make films. That's amazing. So we've got a great resource here, and they're being recognized, especially with
mm,
normal people and things like that.
mm, mm,
That
mm.
there's such an appetite for good Irish writing and drama.
Mm. And before we'll have to wrap up shortly because we're taking enough of your time. Thank you. Tell us a little bit about your photography work and that side of things.
Well, that was an old friend of mine, Frank, who was in Gonzaga with me. He started buying old box cameras online. He got into photography, and I'd always liked photography, but I think I borrowed one of his old black and white cameras, and he showed me how to load it and develop it in a bag. So that was a good 20 years ago, and slowly started getting into film photography. And it actually, when I was at NYU, they had sort of recommended to learn stills photography and film if possible, because you're telling a story in an image rather than radio play or something like that. So it's a visual medium, and so yeah, I kept doing the photography and developing, but shooting on film, and learned so much from that, and I still do. And again, I was like, it was Colin from I Draw Slow was like, he liked one of the photos I put on Flickr, which I don't know if you guys remember, is a kind of a photography site that was quite big in the
Mm,
'80s, but now it's all Instagram. But it's still a good resource though. But we started putting on that, and it inspired you. There was a small community there of other photographers who were Irish as well, who you would start get interest in your photos, and it made you work harder. And Colin actually asked me to have print one for his wall, and he said, you put in for the RJ? And I think I put in one before for the RJ and it hadn't gotten in. So I was like, no, I'm not gonna put it in. And he's like, look, you put it, you make it for me, and if it doesn't get in, I'll just put it on my wall anyway. And so I was like, okay. So, and it got in, and then I sort of started, I've exhibited there a good few times now, and
yeah.
I love it, and it's part of filmmaking. And I do get excited just to go out with friends and shoot and make something. it's a different medium and it's a lot more doable. It's just one shot that tells a story, but that can be powerful too. And there's so many great Irish photographers, so it's all sort of feeds into the same thing, I think.
Yeah.
In terms of storytelling.
Yeah, all very complimentary. And so, very last question. You're obviously locked down like the rest of us. What's keeping you busy at the moment?
Well, I have some development, from Screen Ireland for two projects actually. So I'm working on those, both scripts that I'm writing, and I've got a great script editor as well working with me. I just did a big project before Christmas with Irish National Opera, called 20 Shots of Opera, where we filmed 20 operas on the stage of the Gaiety or around the Gaiety, in November, and they just went online in December. That was a massive job, that we did under lockdown, which is incredible, and an amazing experience. I was series director, but I directed three of them, and that was my first ever opera directing. But it was shot as films. Like we made sure that they were done as small films rather than filmed operas, on the stage. So hopefully they're cinematic. Yeah, so I've been keeping busy, thank goodness.
Wow, wow.
And
Well,
everybody as
listen,
well.
Hugh,
So trust everybody, and for you too, Stuart. I hope you guys are all keeping well and safe.
all well and safe. Yeah, thank God. And thank you very much for giving us your time today. It's been really interesting, and we're really grateful to you for it. So, thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Stuart. All the best.
Thank you. Bye bye.